Hello and welcome to Truckee Talks. I'm your host, Maya Schneider. The physical beauty of our area has attracted and spawned artists from all walks of life. Whether photographers using their camera and film to capture the natural beauty of our area, painters, sculptors, and jewelers, we have no shortage of talented and accomplished artists in our community. Although time prohibits us from being able to feature all of our local artists, we have managed to capture 3 of them, and we've brought them here for you today. Our very first artist with us today is Audrey Dygart. Audrey is co-owner of Art Truckee here in town, and she's also an accomplished painter in her own right. She's known to both locals and visitors alike. Audrey, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Maya. I've actually been a painter for 40 years. I have painted about 1,000 original watercolors that have been sold in the United States and Europe, but I never intended to be a painter. It wasn't until my last child went to school and I decided my brain was atrophying, and I decided to go back to college. And one of the things that I wanted to take was rapid reading. And when I went to sign up, you had to be a returning student in order to take it. So I looked down the list, Jade, Fawn, Wu, art. I thought, well, this ought to be easy. So I signed up, and that changed my whole life. I took watercolor paintings from Jade for 4 years, and then took from many other artists that came in and gave workshops. I ended up by being in several galleries, and one of the interesting workshops that I took was by a woman called Jane Burnham, and it was called Paint Along by Jane, and this is what you go through when you're learning to paint watercolor. Anyway, she drew a picture, and then we drew the picture. And then she put a little paint on, and then we put a little paint on. Well, of course, this was ridiculous. But I've always said that no matter how bad the teacher is, you always learn a little gem out of it.
Audrey, before you had gone back to take this course, had you been involved in art at all?
No. When I was in high school, I did a lot of drawing, did the yearbook and so forth, but never dreamed I'd be a painter of any kind. Then my husband was transferred to Texas. And of course, Texas was a great place to go to with all the humidity where nobody wanted watercolors. But anyway, with the new houses and so forth, and they did get air conditioning in all these houses, then people were more interested in watercolors. I then signed up and went to Louisiana Tech University and took design from a wonderful artist, Doug Walton, which gave me another media to try. And of course, what do you do when you're in a new town? You paint what's there. I painted offshore drilling rigs, chemical plants, underwater scenes. And then I went to the University of Houston and took life drawing. And so I was sort of known for painting everything from the nude to the offshore drilling rig. I ended up by being in 5 galleries, and Houston was marvelous. There was lots of money, and people were so interested with all these new buildings going up and all these empty walls. What could be better for a painter? And then we decided to retire. And where did we retire to? Truckee. What do I do in Truckee?
Now, how long ago was that, Audrey?
I've been here 11 years.
Okay.
Well, I met Bob and Mary Lou Herhusky, and he wanted a frame shop and I wanted a gallery because I did not want to ship all these paintings back to Texas. And so 9 years ago, this Thanksgiving, we opened Art Truckee. And I've been painting ever since.
Now, you use several styles of painting. We are fortunate here today to actually have several different versions or different issues that you've made. Your first is what style?
This is a pointillism, and the reason I brought this is that when I was at Louisiana Tech University, the university had a show, and it was a judged and juried show. I was living on the campus at the time, taking one of these courses, and I thought, well, I'll enter it. But there was a theme to it, littleness. What is littleness? So I stayed up all night and did a pointillism. Put it in my inner and outer. We always carried our own frames at that time so we could show them in a frame. Entered the show, and you could have knocked me over with a feather because I won first place, best of show, most original, and got the medal from the university. Well, from that time on, I thought I better paint pointillisms. but only an idiot would do it. It takes hours and hours and hours of time, and this may be my last.
So how many has this idiot done then?
14 of them.
14.
This is Cannery Row down in Monterey. And now I'll show you the next painting, if that's okay, Maya.
Please.
Which is a traditional watercolor, painted soaking wet. And
when you say soaking wet, you mean the canvas is wet?
It's not canvas, it's paper.
It's paper.
It's paper. And I'm a purist. I never use white paint, and so the eggs are the white of the paper. The American Watercolor Society, 20, 30 years ago, would never accept a painting if it had any white paint in it at all. They have since eased up and anything water-based can be used. But anyway, I went through a period of liking to paint eggs.
So tell us about this painting, if you will.
It's just a painting of eggs.
And this, you say, where the paper is damp?
The paper was soaking wet, and you just start painting then and hope for the best. One of the beautiful things about watercolor are their accidentals. And I have even started a painting and turned it upside down and then went on and painted it.
Now, speaking of turning things upside down, we need to move on to the next form of art that you have with you today, which is your abstract work.
My abstract.
And you mentioned earlier, before we actually started filming the show, that abstract is difficult.
I've always said that you earn the right to do an abstract. It's tremendously difficult, and I do a lot of them now. I thoroughly enjoy them. This happens to be a painting that I did because we carried different things in the gallery, kaleidoscopes. And so this is Kaleidoscope 2. And that's about all I have to say about it. Now, I have painted 15 lithographs of the Truckee area and 2 of Tahoe. So I brought 3 of them with me. And I'll take them now, Dan.
And these lithographs are very, very popular. There's few people
Yeah.
in town that haven't seen most, if not all, of these.
This happens to be Commercial Row. I painted it in 1988 when we had the big snow. All of these were big original paintings, and they all sold. This one is Truckee Lights, and I painted it at 5:30 at night from the cottonwood. We had just decorated the entire town with lights, so it worked out pretty well.
It's beautiful.
And then the last one is the CB White House, which is one of our oldest houses. And when I looked at this house in the winter, it looked like an ice palace to me, so I had to paint it.
It's beautiful. Audrey, thank you so much for sharing your art with me here today.
I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
We have 2 more artists coming in when we break. We'll be featuring Kathy Watson, and then in a few minutes after that, Kathleen Curtis. We will also be coming back and bringing Audrey back out on the stage here for one more hello and goodbye before we go. Audrey, thank you again.
Thank you, Maya.
And we'll be right back. Welcome back to Truckee Talks. We're featuring local artists today, and with me now is Kathy Watson. Kathy is a mixed media artist. Kathy, you currently teach out at Glenshire Elementary, is that correct?
That's right.
Tell me a little bit about your art and how you got into art.
Well, when I was in elementary school, I used to win a lot of awards as a kid artist. And then I went to college, became a teacher, been teaching 23 years. And I've been teaching art 23 years. And it's an idea of, I've always been trying to get art and the art experience through kids instead of my own. And about 3 years ago, my husband, who's also a local artist, Pat Watson, he said, why don't I paint a few paintings for the North Star Art Show? So I painted 34, and I sold 34 that weekend. So I thought, well, okay. So I went down to the local gallery here in Truckee and took my artwork in, and I've been selling. Now I'm in 8 different galleries throughout California, Nevada, and Arizona, and there we have it.
Congratulations. That's a nice success story. Kathy, tell me about your art. We spoke a little bit before we started to tape about Hozhoni. Explain that to me, if you will.
Well, because my husband was a local artist, I decided that I wanted to become an artist on my own. And instead of being Kathy Watson, oh, well, she just wants to be an artist like her husband, I said, okay, my name's going to be Hoshoni. And it's a Navajo name for a Navajo ceremony coming into being. It means right feeling, right thinking, oneness with the universe. And I thought that that's the kind of artist that I wanted to become. And so there you have it. That's where Hoshoni came from. And I just signed Hoshoni in all my work. And I use a prosperity symbol also on my work. This symbol right here, kind of like the half circle with the little dots around it. That came from the Etruscan culture, though, 300 to 500 AD. And it was like a rattle that I had found. Actually, it was a pair of earrings that I purchased. Molly's covered. And I decided that I wanted this prosperity symbol in all of my work also. So that came into being coming from a family of Native American culture buffs. I took vacations in the wilderness with the sagebrush and looking in Indian caves and that sort of thing. So I became to really love the Indian culture and the spiritualness of the Native American people. And I began my work with Native American petroglyphs. Like this shape here is the regular shape of the petroglyph. Actually, this is found in Año Borrego in Colorado, Utah. And I use acrylic paints. The gold is acrylic, and I use very bright pigments, which are actually silk paints. I used to paint on silk. And so it kind of gives a different brightness and color.
And what may not show on the camera to our TV audience, but what I can see clearly is that the acrylic paint, the gold paint, gives it depth. It gives it some texture as well. It's not just a flat painting, there's actually some depth. Your prosperity symbol, does that occur in all of your paintings?
In every single painting.
Well, perhaps we can get some more different prints up here of yours. The colors here are also very, very vibrant. Tell us about the mediums that you're using here. What kind of paints are you using? And
well, the silk paints, I used to paint on silk. And it's kind of like a real flow type paint. And the watercolors I felt weren't bright enough for me, and I wanted something really, really bright. So I started using it on 300-pound Air-Shade paper, which is like top-of-the-line watercolor paper. So what's happening here is I'm using acrylics that don't normally come on watercolor paper, and I'm using silk paints that don't normally happen on watercolor paper. So I'm kind of breaking
convention
through tradition and doing my own thing. And this one happens to be a shaman, a sun shaman, and it's bringing warmth. And so the idea of bringing more warmth spiritually to you, to your home, that's the idea.
And again, we see your prosperity symbol off to the side there.
Correct. Okay, and the next one, I started venturing off into abstract. All of my paintings are abstract, but this comes from my heart. And that's what it's called, From My Heart. And this is just me doing my own thing. And it's really fun. And I have a lot of variation of very narrow lines to very thick lines. And that's the fun of it, kind of coming out with variation and just producing something that's within me that just let it go, let it flow, fun.
Very personal also.
Right.
Do you do a lot of commission work, or is most of your work?
I've been getting a lot of commission work through Art Truckee and all my other art galleries. And I just did a gallery down even in Baja, California. So I'm really constantly painting. After 9 o'clock at night, I have 3 kids, so the idea of doing it before, and I also teach 3rd grade. So the idea of painting comes after 9 or, after everybody's gone to bed.
So this notion of an artist in her studio somewhere with nothing but time to spare and thoughts to put on canvas is
Yeah. Had a great time this summer and think, oh, school's starting again. Oh, but I teach a lot of art at school too. I have other classes come to me and I'm teaching them art also. So I'm really having a good time.
And do you find that working with the students helps you with your own art? Do you find other avenues to explore?
Right, because I have to teach them a lot of different techniques, and I teach them a lot of art history, and kind of like a self-discovery. When I first came here as a visual and performing arts, I was a gifted and talented coordinator, and I taught visual and performing arts to, it was 3rd grade through 9th grade, and I had my summers spent just doing art also with the kids. So it was kind of a, self-discovery for them and myself, and I just love doing it. I want to do it the rest of my life.
Great, great.
Dan,
well, please. And how long have you been in the Truckee area, Kathy?
6 years now.
6 years.
And this one is called Native Spirits. This is just kind of like coming from me also, like a little more abstract. I love to dance, and this is just kind of fun, and I love bright colors. And
it's whimsical, and you can really see the movement in this painting. It's beautiful.
Free spirit.
Yes.
There's a free spirit in all of us, I guess.
That's great.
This one's coming out in me. And the next is, this one is called Cocopelli.
And this one's
Cocopelli
interesting
song.
in contrast to your other prints because the colors are so different. Now, Cocopelli is the flute player?
Well, yes. And the Cocopelli was brought in by the tribe, the Native American tribes. And he was the person that was going to bring prosperity to the tribe and good crops to the tribe, and good things were going to be happening. And this is kind of what I started off with, the Native American work.
The prosperity seems to be a central theme for you in all of your work. Kathy, thank you for joining us. We'll be back in just a minute with Kathleen Curtis, and we'll be wrapping this up. Thank you for joining us. Welcome back to Truckee Talks. We're featuring local artists, and now I have Kathleen Curtis. Kathleen is a sculptor and was recently featured on the cover of North Tahoe Truckee Week. She was featured with her full-size sculptures, and luckily today, for the sake of moving around, we have more manageable size sculptures. Kathleen, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Tell me a little bit about your sculpture. What are we looking at, and what is your medium? What is the material here?
Well, the material I use is earth and acrylic resins, and it's taken me about 8 years to arrive at the mixture that I really liked. I wanted my work to look very earthy, and I didn't want it to be shiny, and I didn't want it to be fragile like clay where it would shatter if it was dropped. So I used many different things, and I used plaster casting tape, I've done paper mache, and I settled on this, which is actual earth that I gather from different places where the colors are very beautiful, and I mix it with acrylic resins, which actually is a matte gel. So the mixture I use is just enough so that it's not shiny, it looks like earth.
Can you show us some of your sculptures here and give us a little background on them? They're very fun.
All right. Well, what I tend to do as far as subject matter in my sculpture are women, sort of goddess-like women, ancient women, and beasts, strange birds and mythical beasts. And they're nothing that I've ever seen before. They just kind of evolve. And I've always been very interested in primal cultures. I love reading about ancient civilizations, cultures with lots of ritual and ceremony, and this is kind of where they come from. The wall figures, these are all wall figures. They go on the wall. This is taken from from a petroglyph figure, much like Kathy Watson was talking about. They are made with the earth mixture and found objects that are rusty. The hair is made from tires that I find along the freeway, the exploded tires you see.
You may not be able to see this
rusty,
at home, but there's wonderful fibers here that make up the hair.
It's just great. Rusty things are wonderful to me. And so that's basically, that's my subject matter.
Now, how long have you been involved in art and sculpting?
Well, art I've done all my life. When I was a little girl, I was always drawing. I was always designing clothes for my friends and their dolls and this kind of thing. And I kind of lost interest in art, not lost interest as much as was turned off by art when I was in junior high school and high school, because in the art classes in those schools, everything was, you had to do it a certain way. It was perspective, it was the color chart, it was all these things that didn't interest me. And for me, art is it's a real gut thing. It's from inside me. It just comes. And so finally, when I was in college, I went to UC Berkeley and I majored in art. And at that time, everything was very free. You could basically do what you wanted to do. And I did paint at the time, but that was a time when I realized that I didn't have to do everything in a certain way. I didn't have to do it the way somebody else did. And
broke away from convention.
I really did, yeah. And I did fiber in the 60s and 70s when fiber weaving and basketry and that kind of thing were big. Still do baskets, but I love this earth sculpture. So I really enjoy doing this.
Now, tell us a little bit about the art tour. When you were featured on the magazine of Tahoe Truckee Week, that was to highlight the art tour, and many of our locals know about the art tour, probably many more don't. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, art tour is wonderful. It's been going on, this will be the third year, 1997. It's an open studios tour in which artists participate by being in their studios and showing their work, showing how they do their work, and people come through from all over. I've had people from New York City who happen to be at Tahoe who hear about it and come, and it's really a fun way to see artists in their studios.
That's great, and it's nice for you to open up your studio for the
it's
public.
Fun. Yeah.
We probably won't have time to go over all of these, but there are a few things that I wanted our audience to see. You have a work here in progress, and this kind of shows how you get from point A to point B here.
Exactly. This is an armature that I have welded. I don't do this. I don't do welding myself, but Ski's Welding, Nina and Mike do the welding for me. I do the drawings, and this is one of the hardest parts for me, is to get something from 2 dimensions on paper to 3 dimensions for my sculpture. And so basically they're stick figures underneath, and then I flesh them out with chicken wire, with my earth mixture smooshed around with cloth, especially terry cloth. And so this is how they look underneath. This is how the 3-dimensional sculptures look. The wall sculptures are made from fabric that I cut out, put the mud in this fabric, put them down flat, kind of like cookies, and this is how I do that. This is one of my newer ones. I've been doing rattles. This is a rattle prayer stick. It's a bird-like face. It's nothing no animals I do look like real animals. I'm really not into that. I like kind of odd, mythic-looking animals and birds and things like that. So it's just kind of fun to do something different. And this is basically in the tradition of Tibetan prayer flags or Native American prayer sticks, where the prayers, it's not a religious thing, but the prayers are put out there into the universe, and I feel like the rattles kind of get the attention of the spirits that you are sending your prayers to. So
we unfortunately don't have time to go over all of these. I wanted to hit on my favorite back here before we wrapped up this segment and try to do this so that everybody can see. Can you tell us what the name of this is called?
This is Bareback Rider, B-E-A-R, because she's riding a bear, and it's just kind of embodies the wild spirit that I think is in all women. It's just kind of the woman with antlers who's kind of the wild woman.
Well, no wonder it appealed to me so much. I can feel my antlers coming out right now. Kathleen, thank you so much for joining us here. We'll be coming back to the show, wrapping it up with all 3 of our featured artists today. Kathleen, again, thank you, and please stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Truckee Talks. Our show today has been featuring local artists. We've had 3 here today. We've had Audrey Dygart, Kathy Watson, and Kathleen Curtis. Thank you all for being here on the show with me. We've had a chance to highlight each of your art, and of course you've all created much, much more that we haven't been able to show here, but I really appreciate you all bringing samples with you and sharing those with us. I'd like to, in the brief time we have left here, just talk a little bit about what other artists in the community should be or could be doing who aspire to create art and may be withdrawn a little bit. Maybe they're afraid, maybe they haven't heard success stories such as yours. What words of advice would you have for them?
I think, Kathy, you'd be very good at this being a teacher. What do you think?
I think just let it flow and let it go. Don't be afraid to try anything.
And don't worry about convention. Certainly all of you have veered
exactly.
away from that. Okay, Audrey, would you show us again what you've got?
Well, you know, Truckee looks better in the snow, so I'm waiting for snow so I can paint again the skiers and so forth.
Well, we're all doing our snow dances, or at least not the contractors, but a lot of us are. And Kathy?
Well, this one here is a petroglyph, and you know, it could be a dog, it could be a lot of different types of animals. But the main thing when the Native American did any kind of rock art, it was to evoke some kind of prosperity or good health to their culture. And that's what I like to do, you know, bring the best of all cultures together with the prosperity symbol, the Etruscan culture to the Native American, to my own, and bring it all together and bring good things to life.
Thank you for being here and bringing this art with you. Kathleen? Oh, look, and she brought my favorite.
Brought the bareback rider. Right, right. This just kind of symbolizes what we were talking about with people who really have that spirit in them and want to do their art, whatever kind of art it is, visual art, poetry, whatever. Just do it, you know. And don't worry about judgment, because it's so much nicer to just sort of do what's inside you, let it come out, and just go with it, you know.
I've heard it said that the artist is not a different kind of person, but that every person is a different kind of artist. And maybe we need to encourage people to get out there and practice whatever artistry they may have inside of them. Okay. Where can people find your art, Audrey?
At Art Truckee.
Art Truckee. Kathy?
I'm at Art Truckee.
Okay. And Kathleen?
Well, I have a studio in downtown Truckee, across from the rec department, facing the Methodist Church, and it's basically by appointment. And I also have my art at the Rayford Gallery in Atlanta, Georgia right now, and also I'm going to be in a show at the Silver State Gallery in Reno in December.
Oh, congratulations. Great. Okay, so we know where to go to find some of your art, and again, thank you all for being here on the show. It's just been a very, very wonderful treat for me, and it's been fun having all of you here and sharing this with me and with our audience. There are a wealth of artists in Truckee, as I mentioned earlier, and certainly we weren't able to get to all of them today, but it was my honor to have the 3 of you here. And perhaps later we'll do a show featuring different artists in the Truckee area. As always, on Truckee Talks, we welcome your comments or suggestions, ideas for future shows. We encourage your feedback. Please feel free to call or write us here at the studio. We'd love to hear from you. In the meantime, that wraps it up for this week's Truckee Talks, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.